You know that Keeley Companies is all about fostering the world-class culture through their incredible cultural pillars. Well, it was time to add a seventh cultural pillar, Keeley Green. Guided by the mission to raise the sustainability standards by which they design, build, operate, and live, Keeley Green is dedicated to using a holistic approach to leave a positive impact on our environment, create a future that is sustainable for generations to come. In the words of Rusty Keeley, we are just getting started. You can learn more about that just getting started mentality and all the work they do by visiting my friends at Keeley Companies online at KeeleyCompanies.com.
Welcome to the Live Inspired podcast with John O'Leary. John is the two-time national best-selling author of On Fire and In Awe. He's a world-class inspirational speaker, the host of the Live Inspired podcast, and he's the real-life inspiration behind the major motion picture Soul on Fire. Each week, John interviews extraordinary individuals about their life stories so you can more fully live your life story. Here's your host, John O'Leary.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to the Live Inspired podcast with John O'Leary. Our guest today has a remarkable story and a remarkable platform. You're going to love him. His name is Glen Henry. He's a creator. He's a daddy of 4. He's a husband of 1. And he's the heart behind the Beleaf in Fatherhood. It's a YouTube community of more than 1 million people. Here's the intriguing, interesting aspect of Glen's life. Once a hip-hop artist who did not want kids, Glen is now one of the most powerful voices reshaping what it means to be a modern-day dad. Through his podcast, How Married Are You? His new book, Father Yourself First, and his storytelling online, Glen brings honesty, humor, hope to everyday chaos of parenting. Today, my friends, if you've ever wondered whether you are doing enough as a father, as a mother, as an auntie, as an uncle, as a neighbor, well, I think this conversation is for you. You will leave with a far deeper sense of grace for yourself. That's important. Renewed belief in the power of family, yes, indeed, and the encouragement to keep showing up even on our hard days with patience, with love, with hope. So, my friends, turn up those speakers. Grab your favorite Live Inspired journal. Get ready to jump onto your feet with my friend and now yours. His name is Glen Henry. Glen, welcome to Live Inspired with John O'Leary.
Thank you so much, John. I'm glad to be here. Appreciate you, brother.
Man, it's been a real joy getting to know your story. I read your book. I listened to everything you've got out there now. So I'm an expert in your life. But for the listeners and viewers who aren't yet as aware of you as I am, when you introduce yourself, whether it's a coffee shop or in an airport or wherever it might be, and if they say to you, Glen, tell me about you, how do you respond?
I just say, my name is Glen Henry. I'm a stay-at-home father. I have a lot of belief in fatherhood, and I'm really dedicated to telling great stories about family. My wife and I have been married for 15 years now, and we host a podcast called How Married Are You? But you can see a lot of our adventures on my YouTube channel, Belief in Fatherhood.
You know what's wild, man, is in preparing for today, I thought about my dad and what I learned as a kid and what I learned as a part of that family. And that there may come a time in my future where I talk about fatherhood and family.
Yeah.
Because I learned it. You come at this thing in some regards from the exact opposite perspective.
Yes.
You didn't witness it, and yet you became it. So I'm gonna back the train up a little bit, man. We're gonna leave that part of the world you're living in right now, go way back home. I think you grew up in Baltimore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
talk about to our listeners what growing up for you was like.
Growing up was interesting. My mom lived in Baltimore. She had me at 16. My dad moved to California like 2 years after I was born. He already had a family with his wife at that time, and my sister was just born 9 months after me. So he was kind of in between two worlds, wondering if he should stay with this relationship or the next relationship, and he chose California, which was probably better for his future, but not great for mine. It was great for my future, but not for my present at the time. Being born to a young mother who really did everything she could to do right, it still wasn't enough. As much of our hopes are as parents, we just try as hard as we can and we end up realizing we screwed up pretty bad.
Yeah.
There's a lot of grace for her, but it just was a lot of, we were both learning together. And I think, without putting her business out there, she grew up in such a tough way that her best really was her best, and I just remember a lot of care from aunts and uncles and friends and stuff like that, but not a lot of fathers. There was a lack of male influence in my life that really kind of, had me quitting a lot. Like I just felt like I couldn't do anything. Just really kind of, low and sad. And after my little brother was born at 9 is when I first like heard the whispers that, I should unalive myself because my mom had started taking out her anger on me. And I didn't realize that that seed that was planted would massage itself all the way in my mind up until 19, where I actually essentially called my father to get permission to kill myself.
Oh man.
And I didn't realize that was happening, but but that age, I realized like, Dad, I needed you there on the daily to help raise me and guide me. And he wanted to be there, but obviously he wasn't in love with my mother and he had another family. So he wanted to do it in California, but my mother wasn't giving up custody. Like there's a lot of stuff like that, you just find a lot of men sometimes because of their decisions end up situations that they can't control. Right. Not to say that we can control every situation, and I know that, from your story, but I'm thinking there should have been better decisions made so that the people who needed to be protected
Right.
can be protected. But I used to wear that as my identity, the abuse, the suicidal ideation, the failure, that darkness of just never getting right. And then you start to see it spill out on other people. And this is kind of my biggest issue, is that we have no control over when the toxicity of our traumas spill. It just comes out, and we see it online. We just see people have a tantrum, like, oh, I'm sorry. They're trying to hold in this inner child having a tantrum. And I realized that my mother had no intention of that happening when I was 9. It just was a catalyst because my little brother was born, and all of a sudden,
Had no control.
I'm the representation of men in her life. And so, I think she held it together as good as she could, but then it spilled onto me and I didn't know what to do with it. So because my mom was my best friend and instantly I was an adversary, I didn't want to be here anymore. So my truest prayer, my first real prayer I remember praying was, God, please kill me or kill her, which is crazy.
You're so gifted with your words and the ability to not only know your thoughts, but then be able to explain them to others. Like it's wild. Were you always a gifted writer?
No, I wasn't. I think hip hop really allowed me to express myself. I remember one day, I don't know what it is about the age 13, but when you're in middle school, like you just having a rough go at it. Like life just sucks. And I remember one day I missed a bus, one of those, kind of Charlie Brown moments again. I couldn't get right. And I'm walking with my head down, looking at the floor, and I saw this tape deck, like this cassette tape on the floor. It was like all wet, from the morning dew. And it said, Roots Proceed. And I had my Walkman and I took out the tape I was currently listening to. It was like Master P or something like that. And I popped in this Roots tape, and the MC on the record, his name is Black Thought. He said, just think, what if you could just blink yourself away? And that line resonated so much to me because I didn't want to kill myself because it was so inconvenient. I was thinking how mad my mom would be having to pick up my body, and I just wanted to go away. Gotcha. And he helped me express my feelings, and I was able to connect with hip hop for the first time, really deep. And so once I began to play with words around 2005, I began to just look at things differently. As a believer, I see things very like black and white, but at the same time, I know too much to leave it that way. So there's a lot of gray and curiosity to even my frustration of like, dang, I know that I don't want to be here. And one of my first albums was called Red Pills Black Sugar. And the main part of that record is talking about this suicidal ideation, but it was like, give tomorrow a chance. That was like one of the main themes. Just give tomorrow a chance. And that was a way of me looking and kind of giving myself the mantra to just not give up. Just give it a shot.
Yeah.
And even naming myself Beleaf, spelled Beleaf and not Belief, is because there's a lie right in the middle of the word. And so I've been able to kind of express myself here and there, but it really didn't start until I went into therapy and I was able to communicate with my wife. When you're able to communicate with your wife what you're thinking and she can get it, then you're operating on a whole nother level.
Now you're talking about some important stuff, man, for all of us to be taking
Exactly.
notes on. So I'm curious, at 13, you're struggling already with wondering if you're worthy. You've been
Hmm.
wrestling with that probably your entire life, certainly after your brother came along and your mother changed the way she treated you. You
Hmm.
call your dad at age 20 because you're asking for his permission to take your
Yeah.
life. How did your father respond?
Tears. Immediately he broke down. And that was the first time I heard him cry. And he just was like, you can come start over. Like, you can start over. Come out here. And I already knew like the route I was gonna take. Cause basically I wanted someone to tell me it was worth it. Right. And I just was calling him to say bye. And so I'm on the 795 freeway trying to figure out what median to like crash into with no seatbelt on. Like I was ready to just go full throttle there. And he just wept and was like, you can start over. And I remember this was probably, I want to say May, or like right after my birthday. And then August 31st, 2005. So it's just been 20 years since I moved from Maryland to California and started over.
So you move across the country, you put your seatbelt back on, you recognize you can start over. You're
Yeah. Yeah.
worthy. I know eventually you find church, you go deeper into your faith, and we'll talk about all these things in the future. But even that decision, man, to do a U-turn and head out to your dad's house, like what did that feel for you internally?
I was so young. You know what I mean? Like I was so confused on what I truly wanted out of life. I thought that my being from Baltimore was such a part of my personality and my swag. I just was like, there's no way I'm giving up this fast paced life for that old boring California slow pace. Like I'm not doing that. It just didn't feel real. So when I moved out here, I remember my dad he was divorced at the time. So he had a roommate and it was like guys. So it was like I wasn't really a burden. I felt possibly like I just had more hope.
Hmm.
And so my dad, this is why I say my dad moving to California was bad for my present but good for my future because it gave me a place to land when everything was falling apart.
Tell our listeners who Patrick Lynch is and what impact did he have on your life?
Oh my gosh. Pat Lynch, super important person. He is essentially what a believer is called to be. Okay. He's going to feed you, clothe you. He's going to hug you. He's going to pray for you. He's going to allow you to cry. And he's going to give you access. I remember I joined this church. My friend Garrett kept taking me to church on the weekends. And I didn't care because I was getting out of the house. And so he took me to the movement. And this guy was the like youth pastor there. And he was just a guy, white guy, cool, but his wife was black and he had 7 daughters. He's 7 daughters now. At the time, I think he had like 6 or 5. I don't know. So I'm watching him maneuver and he doesn't, like, I don't threaten him. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not put off by my demeanor or anything. He just like loved me like
Hmm.
immediately. Just very kind. And I just was like, man, that's real crazy. So then I started serving in the youth ministry and I'm expecting to just be there because it's like something to do. And I'm like listening to the kids talk. But if you've ever gotten into youth ministry, you only can be like at arm's length for so long. Eventually, they start asking you for rides. You know what I'm saying? They start like funking up your car. You know what I mean? Like they're crying, like snot boogers on your shoulder. Like you're in there. You're going to their baseball games and all types of stuff. So I'm like, oh, well, Pat is giving me access to him. I'll give these kids access to me. And then one time I went over Pat's house and like it was the first time I was in someone's house and like everybody felt like they belong, even me. And there was a level of peace and harmony I've never experienced. And
Were you able to know that then, or was it only looking back on it you recognized this is something I was unfamiliar with?
I recognize now that this is something that I was unfamiliar with, but I didn't know how to communicate it back then. I just felt like a level of like it's easy to breathe here. Most of my life, like I've struggled with like anxiety, so I take very short, quick breaths. You know, I don't breathe deep, and that was like the first like I was able to like wow, and everybody was chilling. You know, it wasn't like super clean or anything like that. It just was comfortable, and so recently I asked Pat, I was like, why did you give me that access? And he was like, you know, Glenn, you made yourself available. After you got off of work from the men's warehouse, you came and served those kids with a full three-piece suit on and went to their games and all this stuff. And you made yourself available. And so the more available you made yourself, the more I made myself available to you. And you listen. But I listened because I didn't have any examples. I was thirsty for not screwing this fatherhood thing up. And so the first time when I saw and I went to Pat's house, I was like, oh, I can do that. I can like love on my kids well. He's not making it look difficult.
Even with five girls, and then six girls, and then seven girls, Pat was able to love the one in front of him, which he taught you well, which prepared you, I think, for a meeting with Yvette. So
Yeah.
talk about the first time you met Yvette, and what was it about her that blew your hair back?
Yeah, it wasn't that for sure. Like we were just like, I was DJing at her school and I noticed her, but I was like going to see another girl. So like I'm like DJing and I'm ready to go, and she's like, "Hey, you need help putting your stuff to the car?" I was like, "Yeah, that'd be great because it's a far walk." And so she helped me carry my turntables to the car. Now, I didn't. This is not the current DJ system. This is not like a little controller. This is two techniques in a mixer, heavy stuff, right? And I had to carry all this stuff, and she helped me the whole way, and she was just very hospitable. And so I was trying to date another girl that didn't work out, but I had kept DJing her events at the BSU for Point Loma Nazarene University, and she just was so like sweet. And I was trying to like see if there was something there, but she wasn't picking up what I was putting down, just completely oblivious. So then I go, "You got a MySpace?" Right? And she's like, "No, I got a Facebook." And I wasn't in school at the time. So I was like, all right, well, cool. I took my old student card because you had to have a student ID back then to have Facebook. And so I like went and like added her as a friend, and then like basically was seeing if she would be interested in hanging out, and she wasn't. And then later on, her brother-in-law needed a DJ for his wedding, and then we linked back up, and we started hanging out, and it just was very logical, like very logical. Like I wasn't her type. She was my type, but I wasn't her type. She was interested, but it just was like we were just like, hey, I think we like each other, right? And she was like, yeah. I was like, okay, cool. So maybe we should do this a couple more times. She was like, yeah. And it just was like very logical. And now it's completely different. Like we're helpless without each other. But she is such an important person. Like these people I'm talking about in the book are like moments in my life, and they ask good questions and they have really great accountability. So my wife is probably one of the like biggest forces in my life, not because she's kind of like, you can do it, you can do it. She just asks really interesting questions. Like she'll say, what's your 5-year plan? And I'll say, I don't know, whatever God has for us. And she'll go, I trust you with my family and my future, and you don't have 5 years planned out, and just walk away and disappear, roll over and go to sleep. And I'm just kind of stuck there with like all my feelings. She's such a good question asker. And because I'm accountable and Pat taught me to be accountable, right? So I don't weaken at those questions,
Yeah.
right? I feel responsible for making sure I answer those questions well.
You wrote a book on how to become a great father. And one of the opening lines that surprised me was, I never wanted to be a dad. I
Mm-mm.
never wanted to be a father. So here's a man who today writes about what great parenting looks like, great marriage looks like, who had no desire for it at all. And then Theo shows up. I
Yeah.
know it wasn't the first time you held him that you recognized, I want to be a great dad. What was a turning point for you when you recognized, man, not only am I called to pursue Yvette, but I'm called to raise her kids well?
before feeling called, I had to believe I can, right? And like the evidence, the proof was me for me was Pat. Seeing Pat was like, okay, I can do this. With Yvette, I felt called to serve her well. With Theo, I think I felt a lot of pressure. I felt pressure to do it right. And I was concerned. I was so concerned because, they just give you a baby.
It's crazy. They
The
definitely
hos-
make it way too easy, man. I mean, there should be at least a written test.
there should be a written test. There should be like a simulator. You know what I mean? Like we should have to go through extreme testing before we are responsible for a
I'm
life
not even
like that.
joking. People who are highly capable, it is impossibly complicated at first.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's where folks who've got two parents and four grandparents and neighbors who are all over the place and resources financially, with all that, it's hard. And you saw what it looked like when you don't have all those resources.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I guess because I was obsessed, I guess I became like a little bit irritated because as I'm trying to figure out how to be a good father to my baby, I realize there's not any information out there. You know what I'm saying? Like it's barely anything. Like there's like a couple blogs, there's a couple websites, but nothing like I needed. I needed hands on. What do I do next?
Yeah.
I kind of had this kind of puffed upness about me. I'm like, okay, well then I'll figure it out and I'll do this. And I just started asking everybody around me, hey, what do I need to do? Tell me what are the three things your kids need to know before they leave the house. Tell me, what type of sports you put them in, what practices. Like I'm tripping, right? And they're like, dude, relax. Just keep the baby alive. Just recognize the point of Sabbath, the importance of sitting still. Like bask in.
I'm gonna pause you there because that's a
Mhm.
term I think many of our listeners and viewers have heard, but they don't really know what it means. When you say keeping Sabbath, what does that mean to you and your family?
Now it means something totally different than it did back then. But it is pausing to be grateful and worship God. It is sitting still for a period of time. Sometimes for us now, it's like 12 hours. We try to hit 24, but it's really difficult with sports schedules. But it is a moment to reflect on the goodness of God, eat, worship, and just like spend time together as a family and knowing that God gave us these relationships.
Hmm.
I think when you have your first child, and this is a clip, so I feel like this is the one. When you have a first child, it's very boring because I think God wants us to see the importance of rest. He wants us to know that nothing else really matters that much outside of what happens in this home. And so you have a moment right now, an invitation from your child to be still. And nothing else in life requires that.
It's amazing. I've never heard it said just like that, and it's true. It is both exhausting and boring. Somehow those
Yes.
two things come together when you've got a newborn at home that you're trying to just keep moving forward, man. Get through the day,
Yeah. And now that you have four, right? You have four, I have four.
right?
I'm like, one kid, man, give me that baby. I'll take care of that baby all weekend. That baby's easy, right?
So let me ask you something. You wrote in the introduction that Black families are beautiful.
Uh-huh.
Why'd you feel the need to write that sentence?
It's important for us to hear that from us. There it isn't said anywhere else besides um, a black home who with a black family who was inundated in what happened to us during the course of slavery. The family was separated during the course of slavery. We weren't even allowed to marry. Once we were married, they separated the house by selling off the husband or the wife and the kids, and they made sure they disjoined the family to cause confusion. That type of damage done over an amount of time makes it even hard to work through difficult seasons in family life, and especially between a black husband and a black wife. It's something that almost a mantra we have to remind ourselves
Hmm.
because of what has been done systematically over an amount of time. I say that because it is a reminder of what we need to be shown and what we need to show, not just to the people around us, but to ourselves. I don't think anybody doubts the beauty of white families because their stories are everywhere, right? But if you pull up the top 5 movies in the past, I don't know, 20 years, probably half of them are going to be slave movies. I'm talking about black movies. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I hear you. So
That
your point is, where's
crossover.
the evidence of what a healthy, beautiful, vibrant black family looks like?
We need as much evidence as we can get. We need as much proof as we can get. We don't have enough. And so saying that was a nod to the black listeners, but also a reminder to anybody else listening is that, hey, like, no, we are beautiful. Black families are beautiful just as they are. Right now, there's a gender war going on, and it's been like that for years, but it's easier to see now of what it takes to be a successful husband and wife. And I believe because we don't have enough proof, it is really difficult for us to believe.
So I'm going to make something personal and then ask you to do likewise. So
Sure.
I suffered burns when I was a kid. And then my drive was just to be ordinary. I don't want to be a burn victim or a burn survivor or a poster child for that community at all. I wanted
Mm,
to not be identified with that community in some regards. I want to be normal. That was my drive. And then as I became more in quotes normal, I recognized, yeah, and the call really is to show other folks who are struggling what's possible in their lives.
yes.
Show a little kid who is looking down at scars to recognize, man, there's going to be someone out there who will see beauty in you.
Yes.
And here's my wife. Isn't she gorgeous? Look at those kids, man. So it's to be this role model. And I didn't sign up for it. I didn't want it. It just became part of the journey through happenstance and through God's hand. You set out to be a good husband. And then you wanted to
Hmm.
be a good dad. And then you wanted to raise 2 of them. And then 3. And then, oh my God, now we got 4. But at some point along the way, you recognize, and in doing this well, I want to be an ambassador. I want to shine light, not on our family for ego, but in the lives of others so they can recognize what is possible. What was that like for you to recognize the call to be a beacon? Like it's painful almost to say and hear those words probably, but what is
Oh
it like
no,
for you to
yeah.
recognize, man, now you're a role model? What's that like?
I think one thing is it's not something that I want. It it's not something that I want to do. Like I don't want to make videos. I don't want to, truly. I just recognize the gift I have. And God has been amazingly gracious. Man, he's been so good to me. Everything he's taught me and allowed me to experience has been a blessing to my life. And that's so weird because even me struggling with this suicidal ideation and people saying, yo, I asked my wife to get an abortion or I asked my girl to get an abortion last night and I stayed up all night watching your videos and I'm not gonna do that now because I think I can do it. Like that moment shows me that this is not about me,
Right.
right? Like this is not about what I want to do, what I feel like doing. This is what God has put on my heart and what we are able to do because nothing is perfect.
Mm.
I don't clean up on purpose because I want people to know that it's gonna be a mess, right? My kids, this is in black culture, this is a no-no. You don't show up ashy on camera. You put lotion on, right? It's rude. You make us all look bad if you walk around ashy. But I don't tell the kids like, hey man, we're about to get on camera. Like make sure you dress up. Maybe sometime for brands, but normally we're just chilling.
Yeah.
Normalizing regular black life so we don't have to be superstars, number one athletes or whatever. We can just be regular, right? I'm fighting for us to be regular, to be seen as normal because we are. I remember when I first started the channel and my wife was like, bro, what are you doing? Right. First, she asked me, like, oh, what's your plan? I told her the plan. And she's like, all right. And then when it started working out, she's like, I don't want to do this. This is whack. I don't like this. But I was like, well, you're at work and I'm home. So I kind of make the rules. So I'm going to just keep on doing my thing and telling my stories. And she would get so irritated because her bra would be like hanging up on the doorknob. And she's like, you didn't even put my bra away. Da, da, da. And I'm just like, well, it's authenticity. People like it. But then she started to see the messages and the effects. It's kind of like, dang, like, there are people right now who didn't want to be parents until they saw our stuff.
Yeah.
And, it's not the whole world, but it's enough, you know what I mean, to just kind of make it seem like, and these people aren't all black, mind you, but it is enough to make me know that I'm doing what God has me doing. And I think the hard part with that is that sometimes you get so involved in the work, the ministry, that your kids and your family start to resent you for it. And
Well,
that has been a part of our story as well.
one of your quotes that's in your book, I think maybe even twice, is the biggest stage I will ever perform on is my living room.
That's the
And
biggest stage. Yeah.
that doesn't mean to O'Leary watching your channel. It truly means when the camera's off, this is my stage, man. That's my audience, these four little ones in front of me.
Yeah. The most impact you're going to have on people is the people that live in your home. We look at it right now, right? And this is unfortunate in a developing situation, but we think about like people like David Goggins, whose daughter just came out and said, "Oh, he wasn't there." Da, 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 da. And David's like, "No, that's not true." And this whole thing is David Goggins has helped millions of people. Right? His books are all across the world, and it's an amazing work.
Yeah.
And his daughter's like, "No, he doesn't pursue me as a daughter." You know what I mean? And it's interesting. So I wonder. I was like, how can someone run 100 miles in 24 hours but not pursue his daughter? But the real question is, how can we miss the fact that even us paying attention to that story is not more important than the stories our kids want to tell us? You know what I'm saying? Like there's
Do me a favor, because in a podcast, it almost becomes white noise when two guys are talking and all right,
yeah,
what you said right there is really important. So say it again.
the more important thing than focusing on the story of David Goggins and his daughter is focusing on the stories that our children want to tell us today. My kids right now are at speed and agility. They're doing something, learning how to balance or something like that. And they're going to want to, as soon as I'm done this podcast, they're going to come in here and want to tell me what happened. Now, the stories are not going to be interesting. They're going to be very boring, but they are more important than any story that I can be listening to right now because the biggest stage, the most impact I will have in this life is with them. Not to say that I won't change people's lives, but if they can grow up more encouraged, have their inner voice tuned to encouraging, life giving words from their father and mother, then they will have kids and they will affect people based on how we do our work. So I always say the most important decision, right, is one, what you choose to do your life and your saving, who you choose to put your salvation in, right, your hope in, right. Two is who you marry. It's extremely important. But the most impactful role is you as a parent.
Hmm. How has becoming that parent and becoming the father you did not have growing up changed the way you feel about your dad and changed the way you feel about your mom?
It's in seasons. I've been therapy, so I'm able to talk through a lot of this stuff and I get a lot of tools and vocabulary from my therapist. But oftentimes when I'm like kind of muttering through or trying to push through fatherhood or life in general, because it's so difficult, I get angry at the wisdom I didn't receive. I almost feel like you guys didn't tell me nothing. Like, what
Right.
the heck? You guys set me up. Like, what do you guys hate me? Like what is going on? And I'm not doing that with my kids. I tell them everything. Um, After a while, I start to be like, well, it probably was best you weren't there to tell me. Sometimes we want people to show up and then they show up, but we realize they're not very much help.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Not to say that's what my parents were, but my dad has admittedly just told me, like, hey, I don't really talk like that. I don't be thinking about nothing. Me and my dad are actually a lot closer now, but I'm able to like have grace for him, but also be sad for him. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? My heart kind of breaks for like what he didn't have. It's so interesting. I was telling my therapist this. It's like, dang, like my dad has me when I didn't have him. Like he has me now. You know what I mean? I
So that
needed, and so that's why the Father Yourself First, the book, comes into such a good point here because I'm now able to be who I am for my kids, for myself, which is a very strange concept.
Man, there's a book that I love. When people ask me my favorite book, it's frequently the Return of the Prodigal Son by Henry Nouwen. And it's ultimately unpacking the parable of the prodigal dad, the prodigal
Yeah.
son. And yet it's not really an age thing. We're called to become the father, like for all
Yes.
ladies too, people who do not have children, you too, man. You are called
Yes.
to become the dad, the one who shows compassion and grace for those who do not deserve it and have never experienced it before. And I have this picture in my mind of, because in the real painting, it's this broken son bowing before his dad, and his dad is just grabbing him and loving on him. But I have this picture of you and your dad where your dad is bowing before you, not out of reverence, but out of like, man, life's not gone perfectly for him. And here his boy is just saying, come on, I got room in my heart for both of us.
Yeah. And that, I'm gonna be honest, immediately as this was unfolding in real time, I found myself jealous. And I was like talking to my therapist, I was like, man, I need to get rid of this immaturity because instead of being grateful that my dad is here and he sees value in me, I'm like immaturely, I'm irritated by it.
Yeah.
And one thing you're gonna get with me, John, is like a lot of honesty. I
Yes.
can't help but be honest.
Your poor
Um,
wife. I mean, you are so bold, always. Uh,
Trust me.
you all live in a glass house, man. So anywhere that that life is happening, you have shared it with your audience.
Yes. And so I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about it. He's like, there's space for both, Glenn. Like you can be grateful and jealous at the same time. But I really do love having my father around. And he's more impressed than ever. He's like, dude, I can't believe, watching your kids is easy. They feed themselves, they wash their own clothes, like they do everything themselves. I don't even do anything, you know. And like now he's in the Beyblades with them. So they all basically play Beyblades all day when they're here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I realized because my hope was that I would be able to lean on him and he could help instill values in my sons. But I don't know if that's possible. Like that's my responsibility. And so that's something I'm processing as of late because, I'm super hopeful that my dad's going to figure things out for himself. But at the same time, like I can't put the pressure on him now to be the father I needed. I am the father I needed.
That's awesome. So I'm going to ask you a couple examples from the book that I wrote down, just quotes that moved me. You tell me
Yeah.
what you meant when you wrote these words. Often, what is good for our present is not good for their future.
Yeah, man. I'm talking about the inconvenience of just having like a loud kid. You got that. I don't know how your makeup is, but I got one kid that is just, hey, dad. Yeah, I was cooking. And it's like, bruh, relax. And like that right now is inconvenient. But I realized that, man, he has a voice and he loves to use his voice. And what power is that right there? My oldest kid is very, very competitive. It's insane. If I'm like, oh man, I'm about to eat this toast, man. This toast is good. I bet you I can eat it faster than you, Dad. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, man, relax. But he's really competitive, really athletic. And so these things are like seeds in their lives. They're seeds in their behaviors that
Yeah.
will grow in the future. And for me, if I'm just thinking about what's convenient for me, I could hack it down and say, stop doing that. It's bothering me. And that is not good for their future.
You also wrote, don't tell them what to do, tell them who they are.
My son wanted to go on a hike with me. It's a 5 mile hike. This dude was like, yeah, yeah, can I come? Can I come? And I was leaving early. It was hot. It was the middle of the desert. I'm like, bro, you probably shouldn't come. You know what I'm saying? Because I know how this goes for you. And, he was like, no, I can do it. I can do it. Instead of telling him, no, you can't, stay home, which in my honest opinion, I knew that he was going to have a hard time. But 1 mile into the hike, he's freaking out. And I had to remind him of who he is. Hey, you're strong. God loves you. You were created as a leader. You can do hard things. You got to believe in yourself. Like I'm just over and over, just flooding him with these things. And I just refuse to allow what I tell him about what he can and can't do
Right.
to overshadow who God has called him to be. It's really important for me to like affirm his identity than to tell him how to move. Because when you know your identity, you know how to move, just like,
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you could have barked out orders and he would have finished the hike.
yeah,
Now you've equipped him to finish the next hike without you.
I equipped him to have the language to speak to himself,
Right.
right? When you know who you are, like a pawn knows that if he gets to the other side, he can become anything he can. You know what I mean? Like that's what I want. I want him to understand, hey, like right now you're a pawn or whatever, and I know you think you can only go one space at a time, but eventually, if you make it to the other side, you become a king. I mean, you become a queen or whatever, rook, bishop, whatever you want.
You're going to crush is the point, man. So next
Yeah.
quote, to become a fantastic father, we must become like a child again.
Even just the simple thing of like seeing things from the kid's perspective and being curious. learning the importance of play, becoming childlike. There's a sense of wonder there. And I think as we grow old, as we get older, we like lose that. It
Mhm.
like disappears from us. And I think one of the best things you can do is be fascinated by what your children are fascinated by. Right now, for instance, I'm getting like 4 invitations from my children. One of the invitations is, well, I just turned 40. My hips ain't flexible as they used to be. My oldest, Theo, was playing hockey, but he's got a bad knee and he has a lot of mobility issues. So I'm invited to stretch with Theo. It's like an invitation that God has given me, like, hey, you need to stretch and he needs to stretch,
Right.
right? But do it from the perspective, just do it with your son. Like I'm being invited to become a friend of his. And that's not my primary role, but it is an invitation I have. So there's a lot like playing with them, being fascinated by what they're fascinated by. I have a lot of invitations right now that I'm accepting with my kids.
Final quote I want to ask you about. I think this matters not only to the dads and the moms, but the folks who've never had kids. So depression got the most of me. Not the best of me, but the most of me. You wrote that. What do you mean by that?
Undoing a lot of that like dark identity has been pretty difficult. Like I said before, I defined myself as a kid who was abused, an abused child. Even when I got older, I would call myself an abused child. A lot of those like thoughts, you think when you get saved, they're going to go away. And I don't know if that's true,
I don't think
especially not for me. Like they just kind of stay there and they whisper to you when things get a little shaky. Losing my sister was like one of the big things that kind of like really rocked my faith about 2021. I didn't know how to move forward. And I recognized that there wasn't enough space for me to get better. Like, I don't know if men have a place to go to like restore. Not to get all new agey, but I do think there need to be facilities, just like there are facilities to go through when you're like mentally unwell and you're having like these catastrophes. There needs to be a place that's not like rehab or a punishment center, but just a place of restoration. Hey, look, we're going to pray, we're going to eat, we're going to heal, we're going to worship God, and you're going to go back home. Like I
so.
needed that. And I feel like even though depression got the most of me, like the best of me is still able to show up as a father. And not only for my children, but for me.
Glen Henry, I know you've written a beautiful book because I read it, but I'm
Thank
going to
you.
ask you now what we call the Live Inspired 7 questions.
Okay.
These are 7 questions that tether all of our guests together. It begins with this question: what's been the most impactful book you've ever read?
I would say Practicing the Way by John Mark Comer. So this book has you look at Jesus as if you are his apprentice. You are following the works of Jesus very thoroughly and intricately, shadowing him and doing things as he does, praying like he prayed, fasting like he fasted, and treating people like he did. And one of the main things was like, when Jesus did most of his care and love on people, it was around meals. We need to be
Hmm.
opening our homes and allowing people in our homes during a meal. The first time I went over Pat's house, I ate. That changed the course of my life.
That's wild.
And I believe that fatherhood is ministered to me in a way that a lot of the relationships that I had in music and through like regular Christian relationships couldn't have. So I definitely think Practicing the Way by John Mark Comer for sure. It's a new release too.
I love it. You sold several of your books already to me, but now you just sold another one. So I got a new book on my library shelf. What's one positive characteristic or one beautiful trait that you possessed as a little boy growing up in Baltimore, but you wish you exhibited as brilliantly today in California?
I had a sense of joy that I find hard to grasp. I would say more of a sense of adventure. We had a creek right in our like little apartment complex. We jumped the creek and put hot dogs on strings and fish for crayfish and follow the creek until it ended. In the woods. And that sense for adventure like sparked the joy and curiosity in me. I don't have that anymore. My wife has it for sure. She's always stringing us along on some adventure, getting lost. We have an RV. So, we've taken a couple trips and
You wrote about that in 2 paragraphs. It could have been a whole book, dude. I can't imagine going cross country with your whole family.
oh, it was amazing. And I can't wait for more of those because I think that is a really important book about adventure.
So let me ask you another adventure then. So if your home caught fire, you live in the California desert, man, it could happen. If your home caught fire and all living things are out, and you have an opportunity of running back in and grabbing one item, what's that one thing you would grab?
This is the easiest question. I have one 200 terabyte QNAP system that has everything. So I'd grab that. It has all of our memories, all of our videos, everything. Yeah, for sure.
Perfect. If you could sit on a bench on a gorgeous day and have a long conversation with anyone living or deceased, who would you like to have seated next to you?
Ooh. I feel like Jesus is the easy answer, right? But my sister, man, that's a tough one. My sister for sure. Just to get another hug would be dope.
You never get enough. What's the
Yeah.
best advice your sister, a parent, Pat, or anyone else ever gave you? So the best advice you've ever received is
Take responsibility of relationships you want.
what advice would you give yourself at age 20?
Lean into education.
Yeah, I mean you bailed on college after a couple classes, but I think you
Yeah.
spent the entire life since then educating yourself.
Yes. And the reason why I feel like that is important is because all the PhDs are the real ones that can do like real surveys and get real information. And because there's a lack of PhDs, we have a lack of information, and we have a lack of Black PhDs, which means we have a lack of Black information. So information on fatherhood is non-existent essentially. Black fatherhood especially.
Why is that so important to you?
Well, I think fathers are the leaders of their family. Family is the most important unit on earth. The disconnection of family leads to despair, and without it, our communities fall.
Hmm. Let me know when you're running for office. You got my vote and the votes of those listening to our voice still, man. Like right on. I mean, we keep waiting for Uncle Sam to come over the horizon and save us.
It's right in our homes.
And
It's right
it's,
in our communities.
I mean, my buddy Dave Ramsey talks about quit worrying about the White House, start worrying about your house. That
Yeah,
doesn't mean you don't care about politics. You should be engaged. But we keep
yeah.
waiting for the savior to come out of one of these parties, and it's not going to happen.
It's not even close. We'll never receive anybody more than we will receive it from the people in our home. Your value as a father is so important, and there's no information about it because we don't value ourselves enough to get the therapy and the help that we need to communicate how we feel. Essentially, my YouTube channel was like the Wonder Years for Black fathers.
Hmm.
Like if you think about how Fred Savage used to like do those monologues and like voiceovers, I do that because I never knew what my dad was thinking, and we don't know what dads are thinking. So
Right.
because we don't know what they're thinking, we don't even humanize them, right? And then we're not humanized in our relationships with our wives, or as we grow older, we become these old grumpy, and so now we have a bunch of leaders fighting to be seen and heard,
Hmm.
right? And overdoing it because they feel like their voice is going to be drowned out by the youth.
That's good. That is worthy work. So the book is called Father Yourself First by Glen Henry. And Glenn, we
Yes.
now make our way to the final question, which is, it has been said that all great people can have their lives summed up in one sentence. How would you like yours to read?
He loved well.
It's a pretty strong sentence. Well, Glen Henry, Father Yourself First, you loved well. You raised 4 kids well. You loved your bride well. None of it was easy. None of it is easy. None of it will be easy, but it all is worth it. And it's a great reminder to the rest of us that it's worth it for us too.
Thank you, John. I appreciate you, man. Love your story. Love your podcast and your platform.
My friends, that is the voice and the life story of Glen Henry, my friend. Today is your day. What a gift it is. Live inspired.
Well, before we wrap up today's conversation, I want to leave you with this thought. Glen Henry reminded us that before we can guide others, whether it's kids or families, faculty, teams, people we love, whatever it might be, we first have to learn how to lead ourselves. It's always ultimately about showing up for yourself and then others with grace, being honest about our flaws, and then choosing to grow one day at a time. If today's conversation spoke to you, and I certainly hope it did, you'll love my conversation with another one of my friends. Her name is Dr. Meg Meeker. She's one of the nation's leading parenting experts. And in our conversation, she shares powerful insights on what children need most from their parents and how to be a steady, loving presence that they can depend on. You can tune in to Dr. Meg Meeker way back. Oh man, you got to get your shoes on for this one. Episode 14, or keep your shoes in the closet and just cruise on over with me right now to johnolearyinspires.com/podcast. And in the show notes of today's episode, I'll have a link into Dr. Meg Meeker's episode. Family, if you haven't subscribed to our podcast yet, do it now. Smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. Make sure that you are the first one to learn when we drop these beautiful episodes your way. I want to thank you for being part of our Live Inspired podcast family. And I want to remind you that the foundation is firm, the headwind we face is real, and yet the best is yet to come. So for this time, and until next time, my name is John O'Leary. Today is your day. What a gift. Live with your soul on fire.
Keeley Companies was started almost 50 years ago by the one and only Larry Keeley. What started as a small family-owned paving company in St. Louis has grown to a nationally known full-service construction, development, and restoration partner. Larry the Legend, as he is affectionately known, has been a part of this growth every step of the way and continues to provide guidance as his son, Rusty, my buddy, drives their vision and achieves results on purpose. His unwavering foundation of a family culture with a focus on people has gotten Keeley Companies to where they are today, and their journey is truly just beginning. To learn more about Larry the Legend and Keeley Companies, check them out at KeeleyCompanies.com.